Hi everyone, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I have an easy birthday card to share with you. So let's jump right in. This is the Star Ring Stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. I have a card base ready to go that's 4¼ by 5½, some ink pads from Catherine Pooler, and these little blending brushes which I got from Amazon, which you'll see I do end up using them, but not so much, and you'll see why. And I need to use them more later in a different application. But here's a photo of the finished card. It's single layer, nice and flat. The only dimension is the little bit of blingage, and I'm going to show you how I made it. Now to start, I'm working directly on the card base, and I'm holding down the whole shebang with these magnets on my awesome glass mat from Glassport Studio. You can find that information as well as a coupon below. But I'm holding down this stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. This is a small woman-owned business that I work for, and I do have a coupon AmyFan10. So if you shop for this or any of the other thousands of stencils in the shop, be sure to use my coupon AmyFan10 at checkout, and you'll save 10% on your complete order. But here to start, I'm using my favorite color, Flirty Fuchsia, and using one of these new little blending brushes that I got from Amazon. Now, I quickly realized this ink pad was way too juicy, and that brush was a little bit too small, and it got right up underneath the stencil. So I quickly realized this wasn't going quite as planned, and I do end up getting my regular blending brushes and just kind of going from there. Now I did have some residual ink on my blending brushes, so sadly it did end up changing the color purple to a much more traditional purple rather than the fuchsia, but I thought, meh, I'm going to keep going with it, keep trucking along, and make it work. So I'm using the two cooler colors. I have this teal that I'm coming in with, and then in my head I'm thinking how I'm going to fix the mistake, because I know the ink blending didn't look great from getting under the stencil. So my solution here is to rotate the stencil. So if you're using a sort of stencil that the design allows for it, this is a way to kind of fix your mistakes. So by overlapping and kind of busying up this design a little bit, I'm able to mask the mistakes that I made. Now I'm going to come in with the yellow and the green, which really aren't going to get along great with the purple. It does kind of dumb down the color a little bit. It's not as vibrant, but it ended up okay because I ended up giving this card to my nephew. So since it ended up a dude card, it was okay that the colors were a little bit more subdued, I felt, in this case. So I'm coming through with the yellow and the green on this rotated layer of ink blending and overlapping some of the colors as I work through the design. Now, what I love about these wreath type of stencils, there's so many of them in the shop, is it really creates an eye path to draw the viewer's eye into the center. So you could use a sentiment, or you could use a critter, whatever you want can kind of draw the eye into that white space in the center of the design. Now I have this Concord 9 stamp set that I'm using for the first time. If it's available, I will link it below in the video description box with all the other products that I used, but I'm basically just using the clear plastic to figure out what I can fit within that opening. And I do like that HOORAY, and I do end up using the hip as well. So I'm just going to load the card up in my MISTI and figure out exactly where I want this to go. I want to make sure that they both fit, but I do end up stamping them one at a time just so I can do them in different colors. And I can see the hip HOORAY fits perfectly in that space. So I'm just going to pick that HOORAY up with my MISTI door, and then I'm going to condition it with my hand because I haven't used it before. And if you're familiar, if you've used clear stamps before, you know that sometimes they come from the manufacturer with a little bit of a coating on them. So you can either stamp it with some Versamark clear, or stamp it with just some scratch paper, or just condition it with your hand or an eraser just to kind of get that goo off of there and get a better impression with your stamping. So here I'm just stamping it a couple times just to make sure it's nice and dark, nice even stamping, and then I will remove the HOORAY and then do the hip just to fill in that other portion of the stamping with a different color. So I'm lining this up, and I'll remove the HOORAY and then pick up the hip with my pick up the hip that sounds funny, pick it up with my MISTI door and continue the stamping. So this is a really easy design. This is a nice sort of birthday card to have in your stash if you need one in a hurry. It would work for anyone. And I'm just going to round the corners with my corner chomper here. I'm using the 1/2 inch side just to give it some visual interest, and I feel like the rounding of the corners kind of goes with the round shape of the stenciling, just to give it some I don't know, just an interesting design element. And then I will add a little bit of blingage just to finish the card. I have some clear resin droplets that I get from Amazon. I'll link those as well below. But I'm using my picker tool and some liquid glue just to lay those down in a smattering. But otherwise, it's a really nice, flat, easy card. This would be something really easy to batch. You could do it in all different colors. If you don't mess up the stenciling, you could just do it in one layer as well if you want it to not be quite as busy of a background. But I'm pleased with how this turned out, even though it didn't go initially as planned. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.